Hey, I've got two questions for you. Number one, are you pregnant? And number two, are you a little bit of a tech geek or maybe not a tech geek, just curious about ChatGPT and AI and all the things? If that describes you, you're going to want to keep watching this video because I'm a certified doula of 7+ years, and I thought it'd be really fun to see if ChatGPT could write a birth plan for us. So I thought it'd be really fun to take you guys along and see what we learn. I'm going to see what ChatGPT comes up with, and then we'll talk about maybe how a doula can give you some more context and nuances that, of course, a robot on the internet can't. So I've logged into my ChatGPT account. Let's see what we got. I'm going to say, write a birth plan for a first-time mom wanting an unmedicated birth. Let's see what it gets. Whoa. Okay, so we're gonna break all this down. I am like a little afraid at some of this specificity that I'm already seeing. Okay, afraid in the sense of like, wow, are the robots just gonna take over? We'll find out, I guess, because obviously they can write a birth plan. Okay, so I like the introduction. I'll say that I always have my clients include a little blurb at the top. It doesn't have to be like your, diary, but just like, hey, thanks for taking care of us. Really appreciate you. That's because we know PTSD and burnout is so high in the medical field. And I think as soon as you can humanize the folks taking care of you, that goes a long way. And it also helps you be aware of, hey, is this just a hurting person who with some kindness and love can kind of warmly come into our birth and come into our plan? Or is this a person who's just a bad actor and they want their way or they want to cause harm? And you can kind of quickly weed out people. The more you first see them as a human, then their sort of true intentions will come to light quickly. So I like an intro. It's a little longer, I would change it, of course, but let's see. Okay, so we said we're your first time mom wanting an unmedicated birth. I want a natural unmedicated birth without the use of any pain medications or epidural, calm environment, like to my partner, and a doula. Whoa, I didn't even say doula. And ChatGPT knows you need a doula to have an unmedicated birth. That's pretty good. Intermittent monitoring, that is very, very common with unmedicated birth. Using a Doppler handheld device, rather than continuous EFM. Interventions be avoided unless the medical indication discusses the interventions. And it's so funny. These are really like common ones I see a lot. And obviously they kind of hit the big three roadblocks that usually would make a natural or unmedicated birth hard in a hospital setting. It's kind of interesting that ChatGPT assumed we're going to be in the hospital. I will say that, unmedicated birth, obviously home birth, birth center birth are possibilities, but this is assuming we're in a hospital. Natural pain management, access to birthing towel, tub shower, open to a TENS machine. So interesting. So I have not yet, at least hospitals in our area don't have a TENS machine. I carry one as a doula. I've been trained and have, certificate as a TENS unit provider, but hospitals in our area don't have them. I think this would be a fabulous tool for hospitals to bring on board. I wish more would. I'm curious, maybe if you're watching from another region than me, I'm in Central Kentucky, maybe you can tell me if TENS units are available by your hospital, in your hospital. But here it's something I bring to the birth as a doula. Follow my body's natural cues for pushing and avoid directed pushing. Directed or coach pushing is that like 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to count to 10, hold your breath, and do that for 3 times. That's really good to want to avoid if at all possible. I found some people, there's lots of reasons people might get into different pushing situations. Some people have found it helpful, but for my clients, it has usually been we've tried everything else, and they might be saying, hey, will you just try to count, like help me sustain a push and see how that goes? And that tends to go a little better sometimes, but typically avoiding. I definitely hate it when people just start out screaming, counting at you. That's very annoying. And again, if you can let your body do it, that's the best. Or if no one's really telling you what to do, your body's doing the pushing. That's certainly a way to preserve an unmedicated birth. Unit skin to skin routine procedures. Wow, this is so interesting. And then there's this little note: I understand unforeseen circumstances may arise. Thanks for taking time to review my birth plan. So interesting. Sincerely, your name. It's really interesting. They ChatGPT wanted this to be a letter form. A couple things as a doula. So again, I like the letter sentiment of this. I would just say, I usually just start with an intro. Of course, ChatGPT would not know my personal health information yet, possibly. But I would put like name, partner's name, husband's name, whoever, doula, due date. pediatrician, that's something you get asked a lot. Put your relevant info at the top, little high introduction. I do think it's wise to break down these categories. I like that they have monitoring and interventions, and pain and comfort as separate things. I usually have done it like labor, pushing, newborn care, and postpartum, but these categories make a lot of sense, I think. I think that you see sentences a lot, but typically when I'm editing my clients' birth plans, I will tend to shorten them. You want to have like the action word first. So for example, here I would say, no pain medication or epidural, or like, do not offer pain medication or epidural. I will let you know if I need it, or something like that. I also recommend, and here I would just say intermittent fetal monitoring is, and you can include as long as the baby's healthy, it's fine. Or sometimes people will include this sort of note of like, as long as I and baby are healthy, here are my wishes, period. So you can include that up in the intro. So you don't have to say every single time, like, obviously we know if you're healthy and baby's healthy, here's what we want. I think everyone knows that's kind of the conditions. You don't have to, you can put that in your intro. Another thing that's interesting is I usually encourage my clients, to don't include things in a birth plan that you can control yourself. So like a calm, peaceful environment, just do that. You can turn off the lights, you can bring your own lights, you can do music, you can bring aromatherapy. I keep the birth plan to things that you would need the medical team's cooperation on. So like minimal interventions, minimal checks, the monitoring you certainly would need. So you're telling the team you want interventions would be really important. Things like that. But again, on the whole, I would say that's pretty typical of what I see for birth plan. Let's see. I'm curious. Let's see birth plan with epidural. Let's see what they do. Let's just do it simple. I'm curious if it'll have as much. Oh, generating again here. Yeah, I'm open to having an epidural. So interesting. And it's interesting that they understand continuous electronic fetal monitoring will maybe necessary due to the epidural. Like, how interesting. And it's still interesting that they're saying delay even with an epidural birth. It does seem pretty normative to me now that we're delaying routine newborn procedures. At least for the first hour. I mean, hopefully you're getting a little longer than that with bathing and that sort of thing, but typically it should just be baby straight to your skin. We're not doing routine procedures. I certainly do still see that, right? Like you see baby for like a split second and then it's like, well, let's go take him to the warmer and weigh and measure and give him shots and bring it back to you. You really should have, a full hour at least. Probably some change, right? The golden hour doesn't have to like stop immediately at 60 seconds, but it's interesting to me that even with the birth plan saying they want an epidural, that this like infant bonding is part of it, Another thing I'll say is I've looked at these two examples, I think as a doula, something that I am always working on people with is kind of helping them draw out the big ideas in their birth plan. I like to call it a birth philosophy. So let's like draw out your birth philosophy. What is your big idea about birth? And in both of those examples, again, I was just talking about skin to skin, immediate bonding with baby, delaying newborn procedures. That's bonding, so no matter what's going on in your birth, the big idea is I want to be with my baby. I don't want you to separate my baby unnecessarily. You could have, for some people, I found it might be comfort. Some people might say, I don't want any medication. If I use medication for my own comfort, that's going to be like, I'm going to not be happy with my birth about that. And that's okay. That's a preference. Some people will say, I want to be as comfortable as possible. And I will be getting an epidural as soon as I feel the least bit comfortable because I want total like numbness. I want complete comfort, no matter what's going on. And that's okay too. I think a really good doula is going to know how to navigate any birth plan that you have. And again, I've started thinking about it more as like a birth philosophy, sort of like an overarching, what's the big ideas here? We can certainly get down to those particulars that are important to preserve, but studies are showing us that you're going to be the most satisfied with your birth if your big ideas were honored, if you were part of the decision making, if you felt like you had a voice and a choice, and if you kind of knew what was going on, knew your options, and knew what you could choose. And I find that because sometimes birth can go differently. We might even think we really want one thing, and then when it comes time to give birth, we kind of want another. But having done that work of knowing what's out there, what's possible, and then you deciding what is most important to me really is the key. And so, yeah, that was kind of fun to see what ChatGPT thought about a birth plan as a doula. I don't think that ChatGPT is going to be replacing doulas because it's not going to come up at 2 a.m. and rub your hips. But also, it's not going to be able to give you some of these nuances that I just gave and broke down. It's also not going to be able to tell you what the scene is in your local hospital. ChatGPT doesn't know the nurses, doesn't know the doctors, and who does routine episiotomies and who doesn't. Or this nurse is really great for changing positions and that one isn't. Or this anesthesiologist is fabulous with epidurals. This one takes, a couple tries to get it in. So maybe ask for some help. There's nuances like that a doula can bring, but certainly really interesting to see what ChatGPT said. And if you're stuck on your birth plan and you don't have someone like a doula helping you, like, sure, go use it and try it out. I also want to say I have a class that I recorded. It's kind of a free new mini master class. It's on my website, and you'll see the link in the description. It's called Writing Your Birth Philosophy and Why That's Better Than a Birth Plan. And it helps you start thinking about birth and some of those bigger core values, and then breaking it down into what will that look like for your actual birth support. So love for you to check that out. You can go to the description or go to motherwelldoula.com/shop, and it'll take you there. And so thanks for watching this video. Bye.